As many of you guys know, a couple of days ago, winds got pretty crazy out here near the Los Angeles area, coming over the mountains and causing many fires: the Hearst Fire, Creek Fire, and Kenneth Fire, Palisades Fire, and the Eaton Fire. Thankfully, over the past couple of days, those winds have been slowly going down, but unfortunately, that trend is about to change. Firefighters have been making a little bit of progress, though. The Palisades Fire is at 11% containment. 23,000 acres have burned, and the Eaton Fire is at 14,000 acres burned with 15% containment. Now, is that enough in order to keep these new winds at bay? Only time will tell. The firefighters' efforts to hold the line over today, tomorrow, and the next couple days is going to be extremely important. So let's go over the forecast and see what you guys are going to be dealing with out here. But before we do, let's do a little bit of a trade. I spend 2 hours making and recording this video, and you take 1 second to hit that subscribe button and like button. That'll help us reach more people in the path of these fires. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Before we get too deep into the weeds in terms of looking into the high-resolution models and figuring out the wind gusts, we first got to kind of understand the background of what's happening here. What we're looking at here is the low pressures and the high pressures across the United States. And as you can see, we have a ridge up here just below Alaska near Canada and a low-pressure system over here in the central United States. As I push this forward, you can see that this low-pressure system is going to kind of hang out here generally in the United States, and that's going to interact and cause some gradient winds here. You can see how close these little 500 millibar lines are out in this area, and essentially what that is going to do is kind of interact with this high pressure system, causing some gradient winds to move over the mountains over today, also going into tomorrow as well. That is going to continue, and then we have a low pressure system sink down to the south going into the 13th that'll also cause a little bit of those gradient winds and those Santa Ana winds to continue. So we're talking about a couple of days where the fire risk could be a little bit elevated out here. And we all know with multiple fires ongoing, large fires not really contained, this is definitely setting up to be more dangerous of a fire risk than we have been dealing with, yesterday or the day before, where the winds were a little bit lighter and the firefighters had a better chance of fighting the fires. First, going over the environment and what could help the firefighters, a little bit more moisture in the air, maybe some rain potential. And as you can see, as I push this all the way through the 14th, going into 15th, there's just nothing on the future radar here. So we're not talking about, unfortunately, any rain to help out these fires. Dew points are also important to keep in mind, as the drier the atmosphere is, the drier the fuel is going to be, like the trees, the brush, the bushes, the grass. And as you can see, as you push this forward, these brown colors indicate really dry air. And they just kind of sit around the same areas where the fire is. The Palisades Fire is over here, the Pasadena Fire, the Eaton Fire is over here. And as you can see, it just continues to be drier and drier and drier as we go into the 14th, with really not much relief to be found. So we're going to have dangerous fire conditions for a couple of days. The last thing we look for is the potential for some wind, some higher winds. Looking at the NAM 12K model here, and it's going to really give us an understanding on a broad scale of just how high these winds will get up to. We're here at the 12th on the 11 a.m., 12 p.m., 1 p.m. You can see we have an escalation of those winds in the Santa Clarita area going through Oxnard. Also down here near Long Beach, we got to be watching out for fire starting over here in this mountain. And you can see as we go into the evening hour, those winds subside. And then as we move into the 13th, you can see we really start to see that escalation of some higher winds starting to move through this area. So today is not going to be as bad as tomorrow, but still have to watch out for fire growth. Still need to be watching those mandatory evacuations and also those evacuation warnings as well, which we will be going over in just a little bit. But as you can see, we're going to have these winds kind of moving in a similar direction than they were on the last time they kind of escalated here. So 13th is definitely looking like a dangerous day where these fires, if they're not fully contained, or by today, we're going to have big issues. The fire jumps any of the lines that the firefighters have made, and we could definitely see these fires spread into areas like potentially Malibu, a little bit further deeper up the mountain up there, or the Eden Fire. So we definitely got to watch out for these dangerous fire growth conditions. And not only that, the air quality is going to be bad. And unfortunately, we're going to have to watching out for new fires as well, as any of those that form on the 13th are going to have a high chance of growing pretty fast. As I push this forward, you can see that eventually as we go into the nighttime hours, those winds subside, but then going into the 14th, they get even worse at around 9 a.m. So as you can see, day by day here, we're getting an escalation of those Santa Ana winds. They're all kind of blowing in the same direction. And I'm really worried about Malibu down there and also further up to the north and potentially further to the east if these winds can spread out. Going into 12, 3, 6 p.m., those winds start to subside, but then going back into the night and in the early morning hours of the 15th, we start to see those winds still come back here. Not as strong, but definitely strong enough for fire growth and for difficulty for these firefighters to fight these fires. And then eventually, as we go into the 15th, it looks like the winds get a little bit weaker there. And anything beyond this day is going to be a little bit harder to nail down exactly what's going to happen. But I think what's pretty certain here is that we're going to be seeing dangerous fire conditions for the next couple of days here in the Los Angeles area. So as you can see out here, we do have a elevated risk here for fire. That's going to be in the orange, but in the red here, we have a critical risk. That is a 2 out of 3 here for bad fire conditions. So again, this is pretty elevated. And with the fires that we already have ongoing, with the amount of homes that are already under threat by it, this is a dangerous threat. Talking about areas like Riverside, San Bernardino, Irvine, Palmdale, Santa Clarita, Santa Paula, that really need to be watching out. We're talking about Malibu. We're talking about Thousand Oaks, Agoura Hills, Simi Valley. We're talking about potentially Glendale. Anywhere along near these mountains where the fires can start and spread downhill into some of these cities definitely need to be fire aware today. And this risk also goes into tomorrow as well. You can see we have another orange area that extends all the way from San Diego up through eastern Riverside, Palmdale, also going into Santa Barbara. And then we have another red area here, which is a 2 out of 3 for fire weather for Escondido, Riverside, north of Los Angeles, Santa Clarita as well. So as you can see, a couple of days here of dangerous fire conditions are definitely possible, if not guaranteed. So up here in this red over here, this is a red flag warning. This has been issued for today. That's going to be caused for Oxnard, Ventura, over here near the Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, over here near Burbank as well, in North Hollywood. Even goes as far north as Gorman, California as well. You can see we already have evacuation orders already in place for a lot of the folks down the line of this fire. This little brighter red outline, that is where the fire currently is. And as you can see, it is very close here to Malibu Beach. A lot of the firefighters have been working really hard to stop the advancing lines here near populations. But again, those winds picking up are definitely going to pick up those embers and send them other places, potentially causing spot fires otherwhere, and also advancing the front lines of these fires a little bit quicker. So again, please be on your toes today going into tomorrow and even the next day as well. We know we got at least 3 to 4 days here of dangerous fire weather. So make sure you are prepared. If you haven't evacuated yet in these evacuation warnings, there is a pretty good chance that some of these evacuation warnings will get turned into evacuation orders. So just be ready, have your stuff gathered in case the worst case scenario happens. Same over here near the Eaton fire. Again, you can see these bright lit red lines on the outside of this red shaded region. That is the perimeter of this fire. So we're talking about PAS EO17 near Orange Heights in evacuation warnings. We get evacuation orders all the way across where the front line of this fire is. You can see those evacuation warnings are a little bit closer to the evacuation orders because of the fire conditions weakening over the past couple of days. This fire is not advancing as fast, but as those winds pick up, I could definitely see the possibility of some of these warnings as well turning into evacuation orders. So please be on your toes, have your stuff gathered, and be ready to go if needed. Also, further away from these fires, we are watching for that lower air quality. You want to make sure you have your windows closed, and I would suggest getting an N95 mask to deal with those particulates. Also, power outages will be possible for a large swath of Los Angeles. So just make sure that you have extra food and water to deal with those power outages if they come back for your area. And last but not least, folks, again, these are only 2 big fires in this area right now, but that could change. Literally anywhere on the foothills of some of these mountains really need to be watching out because, again, you see a flame, you see smoke, call 911 immediately, report it. And if you're really close to it already, I'd get out of Dodge because sometimes it takes a little bit for those evacuation orders to get written up and released. And especially going into tomorrow and the next day, some of those fires could grow quite quickly. I'm really hoping for the best for y'all. Won't be live today, but going into tomorrow, I'm definitely considering a live stream to keep you guys in the know on the ever-changing fire danger in this area. In other places across the United States, it's actually pretty darn calm. We are still getting some snow up here, though, in northern Wisconsin, also in Michigan. Chicago's potentially getting in on a little bit of extra snow there as well. And as we transition over to our future radar, not a whole lot has changed. We're still expecting smaller snow amounts a little bit further from the south from this and some heavier snow amounts to continue over there into Michigan and eventually track off to the east into Canada near Toronto and then back into the United States over here near Pennsylvania and also going into New York. We're watching for those snow squalls along that frontal boundary, which will continue all the way through the 13th, going into the nighttime hours and then eventually dissipate. But then after that, we transition into a lake effect snow event here, and we could get a lot more extra snow over here in areas that are typically prone for that lake effect snow. In fact, if you look out to the future all the way to the 14th here, you can see that one, this is not showing the entirety of the lake effect snow bands, snowfall totals, due to the fact that the model's not really in range yet, but even what is in range through the 14th is pretty interesting here. We've got another foot possible over there near Erie, and then also another foot or 2 feet possible here just south of Watertown. Now, just keep in mind as this lake effect band starts to get started, it's going to shift around and some of these snowfall amounts might change, even maybe be a little bit further to the north, or a little bit further to the south. But regardless, we are pretty confident here that a new lake effect snow event is going to get started after that frontal boundary moves through the area, bringing those snow squalls. For other places, we're talking about 4 to 5 inches here in western Michigan, some higher amounts possible up there near Traverse City. We're talking 6+ inches up there. Also in the UP of Michigan, 6+ inches along the northern coast with lower amounts further you go inland. A little bit of a dusting left over for parts of Wisconsin. Also some scant amount of snowfall possible and maybe some accumulation with some dusting, which will probably be hard to notice as a lot of these areas have fresh snow on the ground, and then extra snow potentially up to 6 inches and above there in the Appalachian Mountains running through West Virginia going into Pennsylvania. Also up here in the mountains of Vermont and New Jersey, New Hampshire. Dang it. We got 6+ inches possible on the mountaintops, potentially some areas getting 2 feet over there in New Hampshire. And in terms of the temperatures, we're still watching for some cooler air to enter back into the United States, all the way up here in the northern United States from the northern plains into the Great Lakes. We're going to be getting down into those -degree temperatures with some mid to high teens in the 20s over here in the Ohio Valley. And eventually that's going to work into the northeast. But keep your eyes down here as we go into the 14th. A little bit of warmth is going to start to return back into the southeast and the southern plains, also eventually make it up into the central plains as well on the backside of some of this cooler air. And we're actually going to get a small warm up for a lot of folks out here, pretty much almost all the way across the board. Actually, if you see, I mean, we're talking about 30 to 1 degrees temperatures across a large area up there in the Ohio Valley. But then as it goes into the nighttime hour, it dips back below 32 degrees. So we're going to be still below freezing for most of the time up here in the Ohio Valley in the northeast. But I mean, we could even get to the 50s down here in the southeast, with some 60s returning back for the coasts, the Gulf Coast areas of the United States. But as always, everybody, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. Make sure you send your hopes and prayers to the Los Angeles area today, tomorrow, the next day, and potentially the day after that. And for everybody else, enjoy the calmer weather. I will be doing another update tomorrow of what's possible in the future, way down in the future, for the United States, speculating on when our next big storm is going to come. And until then, guys, hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys on the next video.